I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
Fury fam, quick update and edit before this video rolls. I recorded this video before the info came out. I have great news for you. Terron Armstead suffered just a pec strain. A pec strain per Ian Rappaport, per Tom Pelissero, and Ian Rappaport. Terron Armstead only has a pec strain, but he will miss some time perhaps, but not the whole season perhaps. So the analysis still stands that I'm going to go through for if we're missing him for a game or two, but that is great news, Fury fam. Enjoy the video. Fury fam, Miami Dolphins fans, how is everybody? It's another Victory Sunday, so I'm coming with some positive energy, some positive vibes, but you know I do have some concerns, and I think we all have some concerns based on today's game and the outcome versus the Houston Texans. Miami did kind of run away with this game very early, went up by 30-0 in the first half. And so from there, the game wasn't really in doubt, although towards the end, when they started to score a little bit, move the ball, Miami looked a little flat. Skylar wasn't doing much. It got a little dicey, but I don't think it was ever really a scare for Dolphins fans. I think we all knew who was going to win. But the final score, 30-15 Miami. Miami moves to 8-3. They move to the second seed in the current playoff picture and first place in the AFC East. As we know, the New England Patriots lost their game this weekend on Thanksgiving Day to the Minnesota Vikings, and the Buffalo Bills unfortunately prevailed over the Detroit Lions and maintained a equal record to us, but we have the tiebreaker, thus that puts us in first place with the Bills in second. Unfortunately as well today, the New York Jets also won their game, prevailing relatively easily over the Chicago Bears, but let's be honest, the Jets have had some lucky breaks this year, right? When they played us, they beat us without Tua, and not only without Tua, but with Teddy going to be the starter and then him being pulled due to some concussion thing and Skylar having to go in cold. Now they beat Chicago Bears team that does not have Justin Fields, who has been surging in a lot of ways leading up to the game. So, they kind of get a break. Mike White goes in. Mike White throws for 3 touchdowns. So, the entire New York area is going to be just talking nothing but about Mike White for the next week and how he's the second coming of Joe Namath. We've seen this play before, but it's what happens. It's what Jets fans do, isn't it? But, hey, congrats to the Jets. They win. And they, at the end of the day, you don't have Zach Wilson. You go to a backup quarterback and you look much better. So we're going to have to compete with the Jets down the stretch now. And that's not necessarily a great or exciting thing for Miami Dolphins fans, especially as we enter this stretch now. So about the game. You think you're going to go in. You have Mostert out with a knee injury. I think, and I'm not sure, but I think that's kind of a precautionary thing. Why, play a guy like Mostert who could be subject to injury in a game like this where you don't really need him. No reason to do it. They didn't do it. Smart move. But you think Jeff Wilson's going to go off on this Houston Texans team, which has just been really terrible. And yet he doesn't go off, really. It looked like Houston was, for some reason, unbeknownst to anybody, was zeroed in and keyed in on stopping the run and was doing a really good job of stopping the run even early in the game, and we weren't really getting anywhere with the run. Now, we didn't commit to the run early, and I think that was more of a strategic decision on the part of Mike McDaniel, not to commit to the run, to commit to the pass. It seemed to be working. I will say, by Tua standards, and I want to say this, I want to make this clear, I'm saying by Tua standards, okay? Not just by everybody general standards. By Tua's standards, he was a little rusty today, I think, coming off the bye. He had even said in his presser leading up to the game that he almost wished they didn't have a bye because he was feeling so good and they were in such good rhythm leading up to the bye that, it might have thrown them off a little bit. I think it actually did a little bit. They still look good because, like I said, by Tua's standards. By everybody else's standards, they still look really crisp. They still hung up a lot of points. They still did what they had to do. But by the standards and the way this offense has been going, they were a little rusty. I'm not worried about that at all. They were a little rusty when Tua was coming off the injury against Pittsburgh. They did just fine coming off that. They were very good coming off that. It was no problem at all. So I don't anticipate that being a problem going forward. But it was nice that they worked the rust off a little bit. As I said, and I've been saying, we're really lucky that we had Houston coming off the bye week to try to knock some rust off, get our bearings, and get ready for this West Coast road trip. But anyway, you saw a decent game out of Waddle. You saw some decent catches from Hill. And, you saw some things that you liked, even though you saw some things that you didn't love. Tua finished 22 of 36 for 299 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Wilson, 13 carries for only 39 yards. Not what we want to see. He did have the 1 touchdown, which we needed at the time. Gaskin, 6 carries for 17 yards. Again, kind of struggling. Tyreek Hill, 6 receptions for 85 yards. Jalen Waddle, 5 receptions for 85 yards. We are starting to see Hill come back to earth a little bit in terms of his pace to break the record. I don't know if that's going to happen now. He's going to need a couple real big games down the stretch to get back on task with that. But either way, it's still an amazing season thus far from him. It's been an amazing season thus far from him. And, you really can't ask for much more out of the guy. Just something to say. But obviously, the thing that's lingering on every Dolphins fan's mind with the game being behind us, and the reason that, instead of enjoying, usually when you have a blowout game, you get to kind of kick back and chill out and enjoy the blowout and kind of let your mind just relax instead of biting your nails and worrying what's going to happen and how it's going to affect the season, yada, yada. The reason most fans weren't able to have that relaxing second half, not just because Houston was coming back playing all right, was we had a serious and significant injury. That's the way it looks so far. I'm not saying it's serious yet in terms of the injury itself, but Terron Armstead goes down at the end of the first half, and he goes down with what they are calling a pectoral injury. Mike McDaniel said after the game that it wasn't precautionary. So I want everybody, I keep hearing this, so maybe it's just precautionary. I hope it's just precautionary. Let me tell you something. It's not precautionary. It is not precautionary because Mike McDaniel said no matter what the score was, no matter who the team was, Armstead, regardless of what the status of the game was not going to be able to return to the game. The injury was significant enough that he was not coming back into the game no matter what. So this precautionary thing is not the case. I actually was hoping that it was a toe when he went out because, he's had this lingering toe injury. I thought maybe he aggravated the toe or they were holding him all out for precautionary reasons because of the toe. But no, it turns out it's the pectoral muscle. Now, just being a football fan, not a doctor, nobody with inside knowledge of this particular injury. Seems like when a pectoral injury comes up, unfortunately a lot of times, that's usually a tear. If it's a tear, I don't see how Armstead comes back without missing significant time or the season. We're hoping that the pectoral injury is a strain or some kind of partial tear, partial injury, or some kind of tendon sprain or something that allows him to miss only a few games or to play through it with pain management and maybe a limited effectiveness. But if, and look, I've been saying this from before this stretch of games. I've been saying that this upcoming stretch, this crazy West Coast road trip capped off by a trip up to Buffalo, this 3-game road trip was going to be a big, big, big task for Miami. And in many ways, perhaps not entirely definitive, but in many ways, this road stretch was going to go a long way in determining the legacy of the Miami Dolphins season for 2022. And that is definitely true as we head down the stretch. There are a lot of teams right around where we are record-wise, especially in our division. And these games are huge. These are pivotal games. And next week, we've got to go out to San Francisco on the road, and we've got to face Bosa coming off that left side of the line. And you saw that today they had Shell go in to replace Armstead. And Shell, by the way, had been playing very, very well. Shell had been playing good on the right side of the line. They asked him today to go to the left side of the line. Now, if Armstead is out for any significant amount of time, then I would expect Shell to slide back to the right because he played so well there. Why fix something that's not broken? Let him go to the right where he's comfortable. Now at least you know the right is secure. Now all you have is the left. Now that's a huge hole to fill. But at least you can get creative, Maybe Austin Jackson, and the reports were after the game from the beat writers, the reports were that Austin Jackson had a noticeable limp, but that he said he was okay. He didn't seem like he expected it to be long-term. He wasn't in a boot or anything. But he had a noticeable limp. So it's an injury that does exist. And the assumption from Joe Shad, who said it on the Big O show, the assumption from Joe Shad was that he re-aggravated the already injured upper ankle. That's not good. But assuming Terron misses some time, but Jackson's okay, maybe you put Jackson over at left. Now, the good news about our quarterback and our offense is Tua's blind side is actually on his right because he's a left-handed quarterback, which is rare. So you're going to get everybody's best pass rusher on your left. Bosa, starting with him. You're going to get everybody's pass rusher on your left, but at least Tua can see it coming, thank God. So that's one thing working for us. And then I think, and Big O said this, and I got to agree with this, that you got to maybe bite the bullet. I know the Dolphins don't like to do it. They don't like to run their offense this way, but maybe you got to go max protect. You got to put a tight end over there. If it's Little or if it's Jackson, you put a tight end over there to help. Tua can see it. You have less guys running routes, but look, we got two of the best receivers in the league. We got a very, athletic playmaking tight end. We have nice third receiver. We can find ways to max protect and hold more guys in and still run effective routes and make plays downfield. I think you're also going to have to design a game plan where we're getting the ball out of Tua's hands even quicker and where we're looking for more yards after the catch type plays and quicker throws with more potential for yards after the catch. And this is all just speculation because we will find out tomorrow what's going on with Armstead. And if I'm able to, I'll do a little brief video on what we find out. But this is just assuming he misses some time. Even if he doesn't miss time, these games are going to be tough. Now, you saw what happened. When he went out. Tua was sacked 4 times, like almost in rapid succession. He was getting just hammered, nailed, to the point that in the beginning of the third quarter, the commentators were saying they should just pull Tua. And I was saying they should pull Tua. I still think it was the right decision to pull Tua. Now, luckily, the comeback fell short, and luckily this was against the Houston Texans, who are not a very good football team, and I'm being nice about that. So the game was never really in doubt, even when we started to let off the gas a little bit, even when we pulled Tua. But Skylar Thompson, 1 of 5 for 6 yards, no touchdowns, no INTs. Now, to that end, you have a lot of people out here, saying that with the poop emoji, saying Skylar Thompson's trash, Skylar Thompson can't be the backup next year, Skylar Thompson is horrible, all this other nonsense. Look, I'm not holding anything against Skylar Thompson. It was a weird situation. He comes into the game, again, not expecting to come into the game. No backup ever is really well prepared when they're not expected to do that. He wasn't getting first-team reps. He wasn't, the first primary quarterback working with the game plan. He comes into the game plan's changed anyway. He doesn't have the benefit of a good line, just like Tua didn't. The line is struggling. We're trying to throw the ball, which, again, McDaniel's got to learn on the fly. Great coach. He's got to learn on the fly with some of his game management. Again, he's throwing way too much when we should be eating up the clock. We're not getting the plays with throwing it with our backup quarterback and a rugged offensive line struggling in pass protection. I know we're not running the ball very well, but at least if we're not doing either thing very well, when you run the ball, at least you're eating up clock. So he's got to learn certain things with clock management, in my opinion. Now, who the hell am I? Nobody. I'm a commentator. But I'm just saying, there's some things that are left to be desired from the clock management. So we start throwing the ball. I'm not getting down on Skylar because of that. It's a weird situation. I'm not saying Skylar's crap because of that. Skylar almost beat the Jets, okay, when he was called upon cold, again, with Teddy going out unexpectedly early in the game. He's had some flashes in preseason and the regular season. The guy's still got a lot of potential. I still like him as a player. This wasn't the best situation. He didn't play good. And it is what it is. The team had some rust, and then when you lose Armstead, there was an article out there today or a couple days ago about how Armstead has done such a great job, not only on the field, but as a leader off the field. Having guys over his house and feeding them, showing them film, going over things, holding Tuesday practice sessions with the offensive line to work on things. This is a serious leader, and when a serious leader goes down in the middle of a game and you start to struggle, it impacts the entire team. So there are two kind of angles I want to bring up that, whether we're talking about Skylar struggling, whether we're talking about the offense looking bad, whether we're talking about the O-line just looking like Swiss cheese, all these things when Armstead went out, there's two ways of looking at it, right? Number one, you're never going to replace Terron Armstead if he's out. You're never going to get that level of productivity on the offensive line. You're never going to be that sturdy in pass protection to be able to let these plays develop downfield the way you were with Terron Armstead. Hoping that you'll be able to maintain the same level of offensive productivity, losing a player like that is wishful thinking. It's not going to happen. That's one side of it. But the other side of it is you're not probably going to look as bad as they look today, whether it's Skylar or the rest of the line or pass protection in general or run blocking in general. You're not going to probably look that bad without Terron in games going forward because the coaches are going to put their minds together. They're going to sit there, and we have a very intelligent coaching staff. They're going to sit there, and they're going to try to figure out the best way to handle it, the best game plan for a team without Terron. And how do you handle that? Who do you send over there to protect? What kind of routes do you run? What kind of offensive game plan do you have absent him? So, two ways of looking at it. You're never going to be as great as you were with him in, but you're probably not going to be as bad as you are with him going out unexpectedly in the middle of a game. So, either way, we don't have to go crazy, but it's concerning. And to think it's not concerning would be wishful thinking. It's concerning. Let's hope we get good news on Terron. Let's hope we get great news on Armstead tomorrow. Okay? Let's hope. Some other notes I've just noticed, and I know he got burned on the one play deep. It happens. Darth Cater Kohu, man. I'm looking at some of these young players, and again, we don't have any update on Byron Jones. Who knows if he's going to play? We don't know. What I can say is, I'm impressed with our coaching staff, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I am impressed with Sam Madison. I'm impressed with our defensive coaching staff. Some of these young secondary players are growing up before our eyes and are improving as the season goes on. Imagine us next year when we get some of these injured guys back, or we get another stellar draft pick, or we sign a guy. I'm impressed with the coaching, and I'm impressed with the coaching on the defensive side of the ball. Now, look, Houston's not a good team in any way, okay? But the defense has been seeming to be more consistent, a little better, a little more stout, even without some of our injured players, which is a good sign. It bodes well for Josh Boyer and his staff. Now, again, this stretch I had predicted even before any of the injuries. And before anything had happened, I had predicted we win every single one of these last couple games that we won. Every single one of these last 5 games. I had predicted that we win. Even if you go back to my prediction video at the beginning of the season. I was wrong about a couple games in the beginning of the season. You just flip-flopped them. But my record right now was where I had us. I believe our record right now is where I had us. I had us beating all these teams regardless. So we're not going to find anything out about how good or bad the season goes by those games. I mean, all we know is at least we didn't crap the bed, and at least we didn't, lose games we should win or something like that. We know that's happened before. But we knew we were going to be here. This is where the rubber meets the road for this team. This is where you find out what this season is going to be for this Miami Dolphins franchise. And I don't know if you remember, somebody posted, because it was Thanksgiving, the snow game with Dallas, the infamous blocked field goal in the recovery, and then the field goal to win it. But people were posting it this week, obviously because it's Thanksgiving week and that was a Thanksgiving game. But that season, I believe we went to 8-2 or 8-3 with that win on Thanksgiving that year, 93, I believe it was. And then we almost didn't win any more games the rest of the year, and we missed the playoffs. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year. Don't think I'm a Debbie Downer. Don't call me a hater. Don't get in my comments and get on. And by the way, if you guys haven't subscribed yet, if you like this content, if you like Miami Dolphins content, you like sports content, whatever it is, take a millisecond. I really appreciate it. Take a millisecond. Join Fury Fam. Become part of the family. Smash subscribe. It's right underneath me. I'll get back to the show in a second. Just hit subscribe. Hit subscribe. Hit like. It helps the algorithm. Share the video with your friends. Share the channel. We have a live show every Wednesday at 7, LG Shaking the Panel. I'll be there live this Wednesday at 7. We talk Fins. I do recaps. I do other things. It's an up-and-coming channel. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. Please smash subscribe. It's a huge help. So, with that aside, and little plug, I'm not saying that we're going to lose a lot of games or anything, but I am saying this is where the rubber meets the road. We're going to have some challenges. If Armstead is hurt long-term, we have some challenges. Even if he's not hurt long-term, we're going to have some challenges. Okay? And so this is where we really make or break the year. And don't get it twisted. This isn't making or breaking this iteration of this team, meaning McDaniel, Tua, the core group of players, the core coaching staff. I'm confident in them. No matter what happens this year, I'm confident the next few years with what we have. So I'm not saying this makes or break this regime. This makes or break Tua. I said at the beginning of the year, Tua has to ball out to prove something to me. He balled out. I mean, Tua is the answer. He's the franchise quarterback. There's no question. It's over. We still want to see him play in the cold weather. I'm honestly not that worried about him in cold weather. I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm just saying I don't know that weather is going to be the factor. If anything, it might just be the road environment. It might just be injuries. We'll see what happens. But to say Tua is not the guy right now would be silly. So I'm not worried about Tua. I'm not worried about the coach. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. Not right now. Not for the next year, not for the year after. If something changes next year or the year after, we don't do as well, then, we'll talk. So I'm not worried about the team going forward, but this season is going to be made or broken by what goes on in this next stretch of games. And it's not easy. So I'm curious whether Armstead is healthy or not, and how long he's unhealthy, if he is, etc. How this staff, how these players, how this team rises to the occasion, and how they handle these games. I will tell you my prediction for the San Francisco game this Wednesday and on LG Shaking the Panel live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll tell you about that when the time's right. But I know that we can afford to lose 1 or 2 games down the stretch, but not much more than that. We got Green Bay at home after this stretch on Christmas Day. That better be a win. I don't care what we're looking like. And then you got the Pats on the road. You got the Jets at home. Both very winnable games. And the Chargers are a winnable game. 49ers and Bills are going to be tough, especially if you have an injury. You need, if you want this season to be what it should be, and you want this season to be what we have wanted for so long as Miami Dolphins fans, you got to win some of those other games. And I'm not saying you can't win against San Fran. I'm not saying you can't win against the Bills, but those are tougher tasks. So the last thing I want to talk about after, look, and I know I didn't talk all that much about the game, but look, the game was the game. We knew we were going to beat the Texans. We beat the Texans. We came out with a questionable, what could be a very serious injury we don't know yet. And Tua, that kid, man, couple times he held the ball, like, just throw it away. But he did what he had to do on that touchdown, especially to Smythe. Great throw, great use of his legs to avoid pressure without putting himself in danger. But I'm there like Tua. And McDaniel said going into the second half, Tua wants to clean up some things. I totally understand why. There was a little bit of rust. And I love that Tua has that ethic. But I hope he goes into practice and cleans it up there, because he didn't need to be out there for much longer in the second half. It was the right call to pull him. He didn't need to be out there. The line at that point was a little shell-shocked by the injury, and it wasn't wise to have him out there. I'm glad they pulled him. Let him work on this stuff in practice, and I have no doubt Tua comes out much crisper next week. And he wasn't, again, Tua standards. He was still crisp by general quarterback standards. But by his standards, he could have been a little crisper, and I think he will get there. But that's all I can really say about this game and what's going to go on. We will have more discussions as the week goes on about the state of the team. I just wanted to touch on one more thing, this news story that came out on CBS. And I believe that, I think it was Omar Kelly who might have broken this. I don't know, or at least part of it. Part of it was broken by him regarding the fact that Brian Flores in the draft wanted Jordan Love. And because we were wondering, was it Herbert? Who did Flores want? And some people thought, oh, maybe he wanted Herbert, and that was what the big fight was. Apparently he wanted Love. And apparently it's kind of been uncovered and found out and through investigative journalism that Flores, because he didn't get what he wanted in that draft, he did definitely purposefully have some animosity toward Tua, and that he was uncooperative with Tua, unsupportive of Tua, didn't believe in Tua. And that was a big part of the reason that Tua struggled and that Tua didn't really have confidence in himself. And that Mike McDaniel, upon taking the job, actually took it upon himself to put together a 700-play highlight tape to show Tua and to remind Tua that he was really damn good at this game. And it was also reported that Tua even had to look himself in the mirror one day and question whether he was even good at this game because Flores had destroyed his confidence so much. And I have a few things to say about this. And I also, I heard this on the Big O show. And let me say something. Big O is probably the best post-game show you can get. He's damn good at what he does. He has every beat reporter on there every week, and all the important ones on there every post game. He knows his stuff. I just think he's a little abrasive in his style sometimes, and I wish he would tone it down because it's sometimes just this kind of mean-spirited. It sounds just silly. It sounds arrogant and jerky. So he was going on today saying, well, if you thought Tua wasn't the answer, or you questioned Tua's play at all the first 2 years, then you must be stupid. You must not know a damn thing about football. You believe flow, you're stupid. I would take a little bit of a different approach. I would say, look, Tua's play on the field, especially in pivotal moments like the Tennessee game last year, left something to be desired. And given some of the other metrics and some of the other things we were seeing, it's not out of the realm of plausibility or out of the realm of sanity to question at that time whether Tua was the answer. And if you watched my videos leading up to it, I wasn't a huge believer early on because of some of the metrics and things like that. I was wrong. I've said I was wrong. I was wrong. I will wear the dunce hat for that. I was wrong. People like me are wrong sometimes. You can't predict the future unless you have a crystal ball. Sometimes people are right. Sometimes people are wrong. But it's not just because I was believing what Flores said or just because I don't know what I'm talking about. There were some things you saw that caused some alarm. And I don't think it was purely that Flores. See, let me get this straight. I don't think Tua's struggles in the first 2 years, I don't think his struggles were purely because of Flores. I think that played a part in it, and probably a very significant part, because now look what you see with McDaniel. I think part of it was the offensive coaching staff he had, didn't know how to use them, just wasn't very good flat out, period. McDaniel is much better at scheming in offense, first of all. I think he didn't have the supporting cast. And I also think, you know what, I think his hip wasn't fully healed. That's a serious injury. It takes time to heal. I think he needed time for his hip to heal. I think he needed time to adjust to the NFL speed. I think he needed more confidence in himself and his injury and the ability of his body to hold up. I think he needed all of those things. And I think now in year 3, which is a lot of times before this me, quick society, it used to be 3 years for coaching staffs to kick in, 3 years for quarterbacks to kick in, etc. And you're seeing that in his 3rd year. So Big O was right about his predictions with Tua. But I don't think everybody who had doubts was an idiot. I think people had doubts for certain legitimate reasons. And anybody who's an objective commentator, an objective fan, an objective thinker will now say, I was wrong. Tua is an upper echelon. And I won't say great yet because he's got to do it year after year, but potential to be one of the great quarterbacks. Potential. And if you're not saying that, then you're lying to yourself and you're not being objective. And right now, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, if not the best. He's top 3, if not the best quarterback in the league. Flat out. Flat out. But I thought it was interesting because I also came out in support of Flores when he filed a lawsuit. And I will say this. I still think when it comes to the Rooney Rule and the way that Flores was made to be basically a pawn or a token interview for the New York Giants, even though they ultimately went with Daboll, I still think there is some merit to his complaints and grievances regarding race and the practices of hiring in the NFL. I do. But I will say that having uncovered this, and the fact that they were saying he was not collaborative, he was not a team player, I am now thinking that was less of hyperbole and less of, propaganda from the Dolphins, and had less to do with him not tanking. And I'll get to more of that in a second. And had more to do with he and Grier not being on the same page. Chris Grier obviously thought Tua was a viable and good quarterback. Chris Grier was obviously right. Chris Grier obviously wanted to get certain pieces in place that would allow the offense and defense to excel. Brian Flores was obviously not feeling collaborative on that front because he obviously sabotaged Chris Grier's quarterback pick. If you're collaborative and the GM is the final say and he makes a pick for a kid with obviously a ton of potential we're seeing now, and you actively fail to participate in his development, actively sabotage it, well, then you are not collaborative. You are not a team player. So I do think that Flores twisting the collaboration thing into a lawsuit that alleged racism and focused solely on Stephen Ross was probably kind of a fraudulent move by Brian Flores. And I coming out in his defense, because I feel strongly about racial equality and things of that nature, feel a bit cheated and a bit lied to by Brian Flores. And I just want to make that comment. I want to make that clear because my history is well known. And duping people like that is unnecessary. And I don't get it twisted. Ross did try to tank. Ross did try to tamper with Brady. Stephen Ross, Magoo, is still no friend of mine. I still do not like Stephen Ross. Stephen Ross tried to sabotage Tua too because he was trying to get Tom Brady in here. So don't think that Stephen Ross is in the clear. The best thing Stephen Ross ever did for this franchise was hire Chris Grier and let him run the show. And if you still don't believe in Chris Grier, I don't know what to tell you anymore. You can't do much better job than this. Once he puts certain pieces in place, it's on the coach and the team to execute, and it's on luck and with injuries and who you get every week and weather and things like that to see how far they go. And we have some holes from injuries and people getting older and just holes in general that I believe he will do his best and probably will plug to the best of his ability going into next year. And the best of his ability is pretty damn good. The best thing Ross ever did was hire Grier. I don't blame. So what Flores said about Ross, I have nothing against Flores alleging those things. You want to fire me? You want to then come out publicly and say I'm not collaborative? Part of it, that might be true, but let me tell you what this organization was doing. Let me tell you what Stephen Ross does. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And by the way, the New York Giants, I understand he felt like he was a pawn, and that's probably true. It's also probably true that the Giants, everybody has ears, everybody talks. The New York Giants might have heard whatever intel they were getting, because these teams do intel. They talk to people like every other job does. You call their prior employer, and they know who these people's prior employers are, and they have connections there. It's the NFL. It's a small community. They did their due diligence. They found out Brian Daboll had something special, and they found out Brian Flores wasn't the best collaborator with the front office. And now look at Daboll and how he's doing. Look at McDaniel and Dolphins and how they're doing with Tua and the same defensive staff, and it looks like the Giants made the right hire too. Now, I'm not saying Flores should never coach again or he's a terrible person or anything. I hope Flores gets another job. Flores laid the foundation on this team. Flores laid the foundation. He started to build a tougher, more cohesive, more winning-oriented culture in Miami. He laid the foundation. When Grier first took over, he hired Brian Flores for a reason. He started to help him lay the foundation for where this franchise was going. McDaniel, this is only his first year. He didn't come in with this thing being at rock bottom. He came in with this thing having a lot of potential, a lot of pieces, and a lot of decent coaching, especially on the defensive side of the ball, though injuries have decimated us a bit. But with some semblance of a culture here. And he simply improved upon it, built upon it, made it his own, and he is excelling. And I'm not taking anything away from McDaniel. But Flores deserves some credit, and I think he deserves some more opportunities down the road. Maybe a coordinator position first, then a head coaching position. If he's got to learn some of the inner workings and politics of a franchise. And how to play nice. If somebody drafts somebody, you don't have the final say. You still have to come to work. You still have to do your job the best you can. But I do feel a little duped about some of the stuff that came out from him. And we should all take a pause and reflect upon that. Everybody gets fooled sometimes. Everybody gets lied to sometimes. It happened to us with this Flores situation. And it's obvious that Chris Grier knew who he wanted his quarterback to be, and he knew how to do it right. And even so, when I went back, I was never sure. Does Chris Grier deserve blame? Is he in on this? Is he one of them? I don't think so. I think Stephen Ross was tampering this direction, and Flores was angry in this direction. I don't know that Ross knew who to listen to. I think Grier stayed the course as best he could. He could have got Watson. He had a deal in place for him because that's what the franchise wanted. At the time, Watson was a more proven commodity in the league. Grier's going to always explore options to make the team better. Ross, maybe to his credit, I don't know. I still think it was publicity-based. I still don't think Ross did it because of football reasons. But Ross, miraculously, maybe for all of our benefit in the long run, ultimately turned down the Watson deal. And we got lucky, and Tua stayed the course, and Grier made the right hire once again with McDaniel, which I had my doubts about. But he made the right hire with McDaniel, proved me and others wrong, and is continuing to do very well and show that he is a very distinguished and should be one of the most respected and admired GMs in the league right now with what he's done. But I did just want to touch on that once again. And I also think that at some point as a fan base, guys, we've got to move on from the conversation. If we're all on the same page that Tua's the guy, let's start having discussions as a cohesive fan base again. Let's just get on board. People were wrong, people were right. That's happened throughout the history of this franchise. There were guys that people were right about, people were wrong about, and I've been a fan for over 30 years. And there were things I was right about and things I was wrong about and things other people were right about and wrong about. It happens. Let's stop hurling stuff at each other. Now that this final news story broke, that finally gave us the insight into the situation. Now we have all the facts. Now we know the truth. Now we've acknowledged those facts. We've acknowledged those truths. Let's move on. Let's stop going back and saying, you said this, you're stupid, you're an idiot for believing that. How dare you ever say that? Well, you were stupid because you were a 2-and-ear. You believed in anything. His Tennessee game sucked. Let's see how he doesn't call. Let's just stop. Let's stop. Let's get rational. Let's get real. Let's be Fury fam. Let's be Finn fans. Let's be a Phin-Addict family and move forward. But I did want to discuss that story. It's a very important story because we've been at each other's throats for years on this now. It's been such a predominant conversation in the fan base that it needed to be discussed. So I thought we should discuss it here on the show. But with that being said, guys, it's a victory Sunday, although we're waiting on some very important news with Terron Armstead. It is a victory Sunday. We did get to 8-3. We are currently sitting at the number 2 seed in the AFC if the playoffs were to start tomorrow. We are currently first in the AFC East. Let's enjoy it. We haven't had this record apparently in 20-something years, 8-3. It feels good to be here. Let's hope the team takes us where we deserve to go, where they deserve to go as a team, as players, as people who have put in the work, where the coaches deserve to go, where Chris Grier deserves to go, and I guess Magoo. Let's hope we continue to do that. And I will talk to you guys Wednesday. Wednesday at 7 p.m., LG shaking the panel. Join us live. We're talking Fins. We're going to talk about this game. We're going to talk about whatever news transpires in the meantime. We're going to talk about the San Francisco game and this epic road trip we're going to be on. Shake Hefner is going to have a new setup. It's going to look cool. I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty excited to see it. Guys, if you haven't done so yet, you made it all the way to the end of this video, hit subscribe. It's right below me. Just hit it. Help me get to 2,000 subscribers. Hit subscribe right under there. It's right under my face. Hit subscribe. Especially if you've listened to this channel more than once, you haven't done it. Hit subscribe, please. If you want to toss a donation, there is a super thanks. You can donate to the channel. That's a huge help to the channel as well. Helps us grow, helps me dedicate more resources, more time, more bells and whistles to this channel. So donate if you can. Smash the like button. Enjoy the victory Sunday. I'll talk to you Wednesday. Larry K out. Very Fam and Fins up.